Thank you very much, Devontae Thomas. I invite Reverend Paul Edwards of the Parham Wesleyan Holiness Church to do the invocation.
Before I pray, I just want to take this opportunity to wish one and all a very happy, healthy, prosperous New Year. Before I pray, I want to recite this passage of Scripture, which is an indication that the organizers of this event are following Scriptures. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. With that being said, let us pray. O God and our Father in heaven, the sovereign Lord, the God of heaven and earth, the one who rules and sits on the throne, we come to you at this time in the name of your Son, Jesus. And we do so with thanksgiving, grateful hearts to you for your goodness, for your love and your mercy towards us. We come to you at this time in obedience to your word, that in all our ways to acknowledge you. We acknowledge your lordship. We come today asking your very special blessing upon this event, the launch of this manifesto. You know all that is in this manifesto, those who put it together, the intention and the purpose, Lord, is for the good of all, and by extension, the good of the nation. So we ask your special blessing upon everything that will be said and done today. In particular, we pray for the Honorable Gaston Brown, Prime Minister. As he leads this, we pray your special wisdom and blessing upon him. And we commit the entire proceedings to you. And Lord, we give you thanks and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend Paul Edwards. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Please permit me at this time to recognize Prime Minister and leader of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, the Honorable Gaston Brown, also Chairman of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, the Honorable E.P. Chet Green, and other candidates of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party contesting the 2023 general elections. Special invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the Sir John A. St. Louis Finance and Conference Center for this, the launch of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party 2023 Manifesto, ABLP, Next Level of Progress and Prosperity for All. The manifesto of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party is not a document of a list of promises. It is a compact with the nation of Antigua and Barbuda and all of its sectors. It represents a covenant, a contract with you, the people, to move Antigua and Barbuda and you, the people, upwards to the next level of progress and prosperity. We view your attendance this morning as a demonstration of your commitment to working hand in hand with a team that has proven that together we can move this nation forwards and upwards, because it can be done. It has been done. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attendance this morning. It gives me great pleasure at this time to invite to the podium to address you the chairman of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, the Honorable E.P. Chet Green, the ABLP's candidate for St. Paul. Welcome him.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, Prime Minister Gaston Brown, political leader of the nation's foremost political institution, the Antigua and Barbuda Party, colleague candidates on the platform, Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, captains of industries, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. In my capacity as chairman of the Antigua and Barbuda Party, I'm honored to welcome each of you to this launch of the ABLP's Manifesto for the 2023 general elections. This general election campaign has been like no other we've experienced. There has been a desperate resort by persons contesting these elections to depart from our time-honored traditions of electioneering. The usual courtesy which each contender has always afforded the other, of space to talk with voters, has been abandoned. Tactics of confrontation and harassment have been introduced into political culture for the very first time. We must deplore them. For if they are to take root, we will have started down a slippery slope of intolerance that results in lawlessness, such as we're now seeing in Brazil, and which is evident on January 6, 2021, when Capitol Hill in the US was stormed by political agitators. Democracy and the rule of law are pillars of our democracy here in Antigua and Barbuda. It is adherence to those principles and values that have kept our country peaceful and our people safe. In this connection, you might all be aware that there has been suggested that after these general elections, elected members of this party would support someone other than our leader, Gaston Brown. I speak for all the candidates. I speak for all the candidates of the ABLP when I say unequivocally that we know that we have a strong, proven and skillful leader in Gaston Alfonso Brown. A leader who is capable to guide the implementation of our next level programs for the benefit of all. We stand beside him. Now, as we've done throughout his successful stewardship of our country's affairs over these last 8 years. About that, let there be absolutely no doubt. We are aware that a country, like other countries in the world today, exists in different times, caused by many factors whose origins are outside of our borders. Yet they impinge on us, and we must be ready to deal with them to keep all of Antigua and Barbuda and its people safe and strong. We overcame the worst trials to recover our country. When we were elected first in 2014, none of us could have envisaged the frightening development of COVID-19 pandemic, which swept across the world, killing millions and paralyzing millions more. No one foresaw the crippling economic effects of the pandemic that ruined economies or weakened them considerably. There was no manual. No manual setting out the rules of how to deal with the pandemic, or how to keep people safe, how to maintain livelihoods, and how to stay alive. We were troubled by this development, but we could not afford to be daunted. Waiting and hoping, were unacceptable options. Action was needed. Therefore, we grappled with the problem immediately with one objective in mind, and that was to save our people's lives and preserve our country's economy. This was virgin territory. And even the vast resources of rich countries did not present ready solutions. We in Antigua and Barbuda did better than most countries in the world. I repeat, we in Antigua and Barbuda, under the leadership of Prime Minister Gaston Brown, did much better than many countries in the world. We so contained this dreaded disease that we opened our borders ahead of many other countries. And while commercial aircraft were grounded, we offered a haven for the world's wealthy, who gratefully took the opportunity to come to our shores in their private planes for rest, recreation, relaxation, and to escape the constraints of the pandemic in their own countries. Thus, we kept our economy buoyant, even as government revenues dropped by as much as 50% in 2020, and our economic decline, or growth declined. No person, and for emphasis I repeat, no person was dismissed. Jobs were preserved. We emerged from the COVID-19 pandemic better off than most, both in terms of health and our capacity to return to earning incomes and rebuilding our lives. None of this happened by accident. It required visionary thinking, planning and prudent allocation of scarce resources. Strong financial skills, experience and creativity were the main ingredients in the strategies that allowed our nation to rise from the pandemic strong and ready to roll. Today, most citizens of our country own their own homes, businesses, cars, and land than any other time in the history of our nation. The banks in Antigua and Barbuda today are now majority owned by internationals, and WIOC is majority owned by the government and people of Antigua and Barbuda. A reflection of those truisms helped to paint the picture of just how resilient we are as a people and the quality of leadership provided by Prime Minister Brown and his team. Our people are now more empowered today than they ever have been. What is more, they can clearly see the path to the next level of progress and prosperity. You now have a choice before you. You can opt to stay with our tried, tested, and proven team, or you can risk disaster with a team of inexperienced and unskilled persons, led by Harold Lovell, a man who personally superintended the worst economic collapse of Antigua and Barbuda when he was Minister of Finance in this country between 2009 and 2014. In that calamitous period, Lovell and the UPP gave our nation almost 30% unemployment, insolvent banks that threatened our entire banking system, a government with enormous debt, unable to pay its bills. Water and energy companies Semcop, WIOC, and APC were set to cut off supplies to the entire nation, lest we forget. Additionally, the UPP imposition of a range of taxes, including personal income tax, caused many persons to lose their property to banks when they could not pay their loans and mortgages. I've said oftentimes that the only way the UPP can have political relevance in this country is if we, the people, forget. Parents had to choose between buying food and paying their children's school fees. Such was the terrible hardship this country suffered. The UPP team was worse than a hurricane, worse than a pandemic. The administration of the UPP did more harm than any hurricane and ruined more lives than the COVID-19 pandemic. The UPP was and is a disaster of and by itself. Today, the UPP team is even worse. It is a group consisting of unskilled and inexperienced persons and dishonest pretenders with no record of success in management, financial capacity, or organization. This group would retard our nation's growth and stifle the future prosperity of our people for decades. They did it before. Can anyone trust them not to do it again, especially the type of persons they're now proposing. The candidates of the ABLP who are here with you, we offer ourselves to steer our people to the next level of greater progress and prosperity. We have detailed our plans in this manifesto, which will be introduced and described by our leader in a few minutes. It is an exciting document, laying out realistic projects whose financing are already settled. We know from where the money is coming, who the investors are, and what ventures they will either start or expand. We also know from where the government revenues will come to fund and build out the projects and programs that we identify. In their case, Harold Love of the UPP have made extravagant and false promises to implement various schemes within the first 100 days of office that will amount to $1 billion. Let me repeat, they have promised projects and programs that in less than 1 year will cost in excess of $1 billion, a sum almost as large as our entire economy. To believe those false promises and to act on them would be a grave act of folly. They are simply impossible. But Harold Lovell evidently believes in the big lie. Obviously, he also believes that the people of Antigua and Barbuda are brain dead and would accept any foolish lie he tells. The UPP group would retard our growth and stifle the future prosperity of our people for decades. They did it before. Who would trust them not to do it again? The world has become an ocean of turbulent waters. Now more than ever, our Antigua and Barbuda ship of state needs knowledgeable and visionary captain and an experienced and proven crew. I present to you this morning this team. In the manifesto we launched today, a comprehensive, detailed, and exciting program to move our nation to the next and higher level of progress and prosperity is clearly set out. We invite you to join us in fulfilling the aspiration of all of our people to maintain Antigua and Barbuda's trajectory of economic growth and development. God bless Antigua and Barbuda. God bless the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party. God bless us together as we continue to forge this nation upwards and forwards to the next level.
Thank you very much, Chairman E.P. Chet Green. Ladies and gentlemen, apologies from Senator Nacinta Ned, the ABLP's candidate for Barbuda. She is hitting the ground there in Barbuda and is unable to be with us this morning. The driver of A5055, all of your windows are down. So I guess you'll need to go to your vehicle, A5055. I will ask you to focus your attention on the screen as soon as we have some audio for the said video. Ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister and the leader of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, the Honorable Gaston Brown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremony. I acknowledge the President of the Senate, Speaker of the House of Representatives, colleague ministers, distinguished comrades, distinguished excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished captains of industry, distinguished toilers in the vineyard of Antigua and Barbuda's economy, distinguished countrymen and countrywomen. Let me start by extending a disclaimer that my voice is not the best today. Perhaps not suited to deliver an hour-long presentation to give you the roadmap towards the next level of progress and prosperity. But in true Antiguan courage and resilience, I shall soldier on. So I thank you all for coming to this occasion on which Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party launches its manifesto for the general elections of January 18th. And beyond this event, thank you, each of you, for the role that you have played in making the economy of our country strong, and for helping to bring us to the springboard from which we'll leap to the next level of progress and prosperity. Over the last 8 years, the ABLP administration had the challenging task of steering our nation through unprecedented times. No previous government, either here or elsewhere in the world, has been confronted with 3 of the worst calamities that have ever befallen humanity simultaneously. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy, the severe disruption of global logistics, including increased costs of containers, transportation, and insurance, and the adverse effects of the Russian war on Ukraine that created food and oil shortages and escalated cost of living. In 2020, all over the world, national economies were battered, businesses shrunk, investment halted, and unemployment soared. We were not an exception. Revenues dropped all around. The economy shrunk by 20%. Hundreds of persons in the private sector were put out of work. In fact, thousands of persons in the private sector were put out of work. As countries closed their borders, planes stopped flying and boats halted sailing. It was a time of global worry. None of us should forget the fear in which the peoples of the world lived, nor the paralysis that gripped many governments as fatalities caused by COVID-19 mounted to millions and health sectors scrambled to save lives. Yet, in all those exceedingly trying circumstances, Antigua and Barbuda emerged better off than most countries. We kept fatalities down to one of the lowest numbers in the world, 146 persons of almost 6.9 million to date. And we saved more infected persons per head of population than the majority of other countries. We recovered 8,960 persons, many of whom are back at work, back at school, and back to living healthy and productive lives. In the process, we built out better healthcare facilities, better services, and better equipped and trained medical teams. That was no easy accomplishment. It required decisive governance, sound financial planning, and skillful allocation of scarce resources. That was not all. We ensured that no public servants were dismissed or made redundant.
literally guaranteeing that there was at least one breadwinner in each household. Additionally, we supported everyone in the country through a variety of interventions, which included discounts in water and electricity, food vouchers, and making special arrangements with banks not to foreclose, but to extend moratorium on loans and mortgages. And I add here that it is the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party administration that promoted the moratorium on loans throughout the Eastern Caribbean currency region. We also used that time to incentivize our tourism private sector partners to upgrade their properties in preparation for the reopening of borders, which we did long before any other major tourism destination. And I remind you of June 1st, 2020, when the first American airline landed here after we reopened our borders. I believe it would have brought tears to many of our people, recognizing the courage and resilience of the Antiguan and Barbudan people. The result of that early opening ensured that many companies, retail outlets, bars, and service providers resumed business and survived. We successfully balanced the protection of lives and livelihoods, putting our people back to work long before other countries. And let us not forget that the naysayers, they were promoting the closure of the country for almost 2 years. We said that that would have created devastating economic consequences for our country, and that we had to balance lives and livelihoods. We got it right. And it is important to note that, unlike several countries, we did not go to the IMF for a bailout loan. Let us not forget that with a far less impactful crisis back in 2009, the then UPP administration ran to the IMF for a bailout loan, which incidentally, my administration had to repay. By not going to the IMF, we avoided the harsh conditionalities, including the imposition of personal income tax and other taxes, as well as job cuts, which would have been requirements to pay back the IMF debt. Whereas these are not conditionalities from the onset. Almost invariably, whenever targets are missed, the IMF would insist that the borrowing country pursue those policies. We made sure that we protected your jobs by not entering an IMF program. And you'd recall too that our opponents had argued vehemently that there was a need for us to go to the IMF to get cheap money, notwithstanding the fact that that could have resulted in job losses. So it is evident that they do not care about sustaining jobs, but wanted us to repeat their failed program in which they rushed to the IMF instead of using whatever resilience, whatever creativity, innovativeness they may have had in order to deal with the lesser crisis that they were faced with. Now, we manage primarily on our own resources and from a small amount of borrowings, avoiding excessive borrowings, which would have been a drag on growth. And that is precisely what happened to the UPP in 2009 to 2014. They would have borrowed in excess of $800 million, which became a drag on growth, and as a consequence, could not restore growth to the country's economy. And subsequently, thousands of people were put out of work. Now, while the global growth in 2021 was 6%, we enjoyed high economic growth of 7.43%. Even more remarkably, as growth in the world declined by 3.2% in 2022, our economy defied all the odds and is expected to grow by a whopping 8.3% as it will. So this means now that Antigua and Barbuda will enjoy post-crisis growth of 7.8% per annum, the highest in the entire Caribbean, or the hemisphere for that matter. As all of you in this hall will know, this could only have been achieved through sound, creative financial management, solid economic judgment, and visionary leadership. And I know that there are many who have taken my administration for granted. But this is the high quality of governance that the ABLP administration provided to successfully steer this nation to a higher level of achievement. Yes. Now, today, unfortunately, my speech will be relatively long. Because, you know, we have put together a manifesto that is 135 pages, the longest, the most impactful, and with the greatest and most exciting content in the history of our country. I'll go as far as stating that it will be a collector's piece, and you'd want to get a physical copy for your library, because I'm pretty sure that it will be a prototype to be utilized by others. It covers our successes during the last 8.5 years, and it certainly would include the projects that will follow. Now, I spoke earlier about the high quality of governance that we have provided, and we would have done so successfully despite the crises that we were faced with. It is a high quality of government that we will continue to give with the support of the electorate of this nation, and certainly by their will, and we ask you to continue to support the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party. My distinguished friends, I want to note that while our accomplishments undoubtedly benefited from solid and economic as well as fiscal management for our country's affairs, the private sector played a real role as a partner, and for that, I would like to thank them sincerely. At no previous time in our nation's history have we witnessed the great confidence by the private sector and individual persons in the government and the economy. Over the last 8 years, new and expanded businesses of all kinds, estimated at over $2 billion. That's right, $2 billion have sprung up across Antigua and Barbuda, providing jobs, increasing contributions to Social Security, medical benefits, and education levy. And let me just name a few, just in case there's some who may think that it is not true. So far, PLH has spent in excess of $600 million in our economy. YIDA, that they tried to vilify, to date, has spent over $540 million. Sunring, for example, would have spent in excess of $300 million. So you can do the math. When you look at all of the major projects on Antigua and Barbuda, the build out at Jumbie Bay, at Mill Reef Club, at Windward Beach, and many of the other luxury properties throughout the island, billions of dollars were invested in this country. In fact, the single most expensive home in the Caribbean, valuing $250 million US, is being constructed right here in Antigua and Barbuda, in Glory Bay. That's a property being constructed for the last 3 years by Baron Thyssen. $250 million US. So there's some who believe that unless you see a plethora of additional hotels, that nothing is happening. But all you have to do is look at the business of the port, look at the construction activity throughout the island, and you'll recognize that Antigua and Barbuda has one of the most robust economies within this hemisphere. Now, business people do not invest in a country and a government in which they have no confidence. The proof of that confidence is evident in the investments by local and foreign persons and entities. I thank the business sector for their confidence and assure them that a future ABLP administration will continue to work in partnership with them to continue our collective and steady climb to the next level of progress and prosperity. My friends, I will not dwell on the horrors of an experience which many of us lived, but I'm obliged to recall that between 2004 and 2014, this country risked its future with the failed experiment, the United Progressive Party. In the campaigns of the elections in 2004 and 2009, they made many promises that they did not keep. Among those promises were that they would not impose personal income tax. They did. They also swore that they would not take our country to the IMF. They did. Consequently, this nation endured many hardships. Our economy collapsed by approximately 25%, and unemployment rocketed in excess of 25%. These days, Mr. Harrell, who was the Minister of Finance for the 5 most disastrous years in our nation's history, between 2009 and 2014, says, and I quote, that he did not collapse the economy by 25%, but only approximately 20%, as if 20% is not bad enough. And remember that he did not have the crisis that we had as a result of COVID and the global lockdown. The ships are still coming, the planes are still coming. In any event, his memory must be failing because official records show that the decline of the economy was at least 23.5%. So when we say approximately 25%, it is not a hyperbole, it is reality. Now there are living witnesses to that disaster, including many in this room. So you know the truth. You know that these are not fabrications. We are reminding the people of Antigua about this truth so that they can understand the consequences of any change. Many lost their properties to foreclosures, could not find work, saw their businesses shrink, or could not make ends meet. Lest you forget, UBP left this nation in 2014 with economic failure, banking failure, and fiscal failure, that including burdensome debt with over 50% in arrears. When you hear we got a bad hand to play. My administration in 2014, if it was not for the experience and skills of the members, this country would have ended up as a failed state. Let us not forget from whence we came. Let us not forget that as of June of 2014, our country could not pay for basic services to include water, fuel, electricity, that they owed West Indies Oil Company $89 million without any formal credit terms, SemCorp $22 million, APC $45 million, and also without any credit terms. And it is my administration that had to take on the task of retiring those debts and to restore normalcy. And what is also interesting is that in as much as we owed West Indies Oil Company $89 million, within a matter of months, we were able to buy out West Indies Oil Company and became 100% holder. So again, it shows the resilience of my administration. So whereas the then owners of West Indies Oil Company had taken the position that they will plunge the country into darkness, we said to them, don't worry, in a matter of months, we'll become the owners. And we did it. Again, thanks to the support, thanks to the resilience, thanks to the creativity of the Antiguan and Barbudan people. And let us not forget too, that the UBP left us with vastly expanded poverty. Let us not forget. I mean, I recall entering homes without water, without electricity. Absolutely no hope of regaining any form of utility service. That is why we had to waive all arrears in order to get these individuals reconnected. Now that is what the ABLP administration inherited in 2014, including little or no investment in water production and supply, no investment in cruise tourism, no investment in the cargo port to facilitate business, no practical plans for the future, no pathway to increase employment, and more than anything else, no hope. The walls of the Port Authority, the cargo port, were literally falling into the sea. The administrative building was falling apart, lest you forget. At that time, too, the UPB administration could not even pay the staff at the Port Authority. They were paying in arrears, salaries and wages. My friends, it is that desert of hopelessness that the ABLP inherited. And it is that desert we transform to a garden in which business has boomed, employment has increased, houses have been built, and 3 modern ports are catapulting us forward. Now, my dear countrymen and countrywomen, that is real, tangible, and measurable progress. So for those who would glibly say that we have done nothing, the evidence is there for all to see. It is not pie-in-the-sky promises made to fool and to deceive. Our word is our bond, and we do not make idle promises. And what we have achieved in the last 8 years, we have done together. Therefore, in a few days' time, our nation will be a fork in the road. The choice will be between the record of the 2 main parties. One that lifted up the nation with a proven track record of successful management, and one with a proven track record of failure and disaster. And you know which institution has a track record of failure and disaster. Only this time, it could be worse. Frighteningly so. And I presume that most of Antigua and Barbuda, or most Antiguans and Barbudans, are frightened over the prospects of a change of governance in this country. Terrified. So, frighteningly so, not one of the UPP aspirants to office has any proven successful record in governance, in financial administration, and in economic competence. You know, this is like giving perhaps a domestic worker a plane to fly. I want to know who would take such risk. And I'm not using domestic workers in any pejorative terms, or for that matter, a banker, a plane to fly. Obviously, the plane will crash. So we can't risk that, my dear countrymen and countrymen. Risking the UPP is risking retrogression and your future, as well as the future of your children. So if you really care about the country, your future and your children's future, the choice is obvious. For just as it took years to recover the country from the last UPP maladministration, so will it take years to rebuild what we could or would lose if we made that mistake. And I ask a question. Do any of us want to return to losing our savings, to high unemployment, to losing our homes and cars, to high debt, to IMF harsh conditionalities, and to economic catastrophe? Of course not, certainly not. And that is a message which I hope will go forth from this hall to every nook and cranny throughout Antigua and Barbuda. It is important for people to understand the consequences of a governance change at this time. We are moving upward steadily and surely to the next higher level of progress and prosperity with a tried, tested, and proven ABLP team. So there's no guesswork here in terms of the team that you are supporting. We have performed admirably for the last 8.5 years. We have literally outperformed every single administration in this hemisphere, considering the resources we've had to work with and the myriad of challenges that we had to face. The team that the UPP is offering to guide this nation's affairs has been led by the man who was finance minister from 2009 to 2014, literally killed the economy, and the others, incidentally, are a hodgepodge of persons who have no skills, little knowledge, and no governance experience. And at this function, I will not even waste my time to speak of their unintegrity. because we know that they have no integrity. Now is not the forum for that. So, who would trust the economy and the nation's well-being into the hands of such a group? It will be irresponsible for any patriotic Antiguan and Barbuda to entrust the leadership of this country to such an incompetent group of individuals. My friends, the manifesto we launched today is our compact with the nation of Antigua and Barbuda and all its sectors, all its people. Our aspiration is to move Antigua and Barbuda upwards to the next higher level of progress and prosperity. We know it can be done because together we have proven it can be done. The ABLP administration has invested over $1.4 billion in physical and social infrastructure over the last 8 years. It is the highest level of public sector investment made in any previous 8-year period in the history of our country. Investment includes the 5 Islands campus of UWI that will raise the level of knowledge in our country, a modern cargo port and cruise ship port, expansion and refurbishment of highways and roads, new and more health facilities, over 1,300 new homes, scholarships for higher education, support for local entrepreneurial programs, and in expanded educational facilities. The private sector has invested billions of dollars in houses, shopping malls, retail outlets, hotels, guest houses, manufacturing, and various businesses that provide services. We are poised for the great leap upward. And this is not a time to risk retrogression. A leap that will take us closer to the level of achieving the status of an economic powerhouse with developed country living standards to which we all aspire. My friends, let me now highlight some of the realistic plans and projects included in this manifesto. I emphasize that time will not allow me to detail all the projects and programs that are set out in the manifesto, but I urge you to read it. Make sure you get a copy. It is user-friendly, even though it is 135 pages long. By any objective standard, the manifesto, as I said before, is a most comprehensive developmental plan for our nation that will produce jobs and more opportunities to include entrepreneurial opportunities. I will now list a few of these projects. An investment of over $100 million by Global Ports Holdings on the development of the harbor front, where there will be shops, restaurants, boardwalks, and entertainment facilities, including an amphitheater, all of which will be available to Antiguans and Barbudans to operate. And you'd have noticed that on Newgate Street, they have already fenced the area to commence construction. So again, these are not idle promises. There will also be a world-class terminal building, a casino, and a spa. Another project is the construction of a yacht marina in the St. John's Harbor. And we will not only encourage the construction of this facility, but will invite local entrepreneurs to invest in its development and operations. And I see Sir Gerald Watt is here with us today, one of the pioneers in this sector. And I hope that the Falmouth Harbor Marina Group will consider pursuing this particular project. The ABLP government will assist local business ownership through its venture capital fund by putting up to 25% of the capital to help potential owners to catalyze additional loan and equity investments in their business. So typically, this marina, if it's $4 million to construct it, the first phase, my government will put in the first $1 million in order to de-risk the investment. That is how far we're going to empower the people of Antigua and Barbuda with ownership. Now, while government will retain equity in the business to facilitate borrowing, further equity injection, startup, the owners can subsequently buy out the government's shares using the dividends from the profits. Government's role is not to be an owner. It is to facilitate ownership by our locals. Antigua will be a premier destination for cruise tourism, which will be bolstered by the investment of US $100 million by one of the world's largest cruise ship companies, Royal Caribbean International, RCI. An agreement had already been signed with RCI in March of 2019 to establish a beach club at Fort James to be utilized by the passengers on their ships calling at Antigua. The project was deferred because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which crippled the cruise industry until 2021. However, RCI is now ready to proceed. Yet another project that will generate hundreds of jobs. An investment of $773 million by Robert De Niro and James Packer in a new resort to be built on the old K Club resort site in Barbuda, complementing the Caribbean's only Nobu restaurants located in Barbuda. Moongate Antigua, a 49-suite all-inclusive boutique hotel and spa at Half Moon Bay. The Peace and Love and Happiness PLH Resort will complete its first 60 luxury homes and condominiums in Barbuda in 2023. An 18-hole Tom Fazio designed golf course is now nearing completion, part of the PLH Resort. It will be one of the finest golf courses in the entire Caribbean, and that is no exaggeration. Nikki Beach, a luxury beach club with residences founded by Jack Penrod, will be built on Antigua's Jolly Beach, and I believe they may have an artist's impression, which I will ask them to pull up if it's there. There will also be the Royalton Chic, a 350-room luxury 5-star adults-only property that will commence operations in November of this year. It will replace the old Halcyon Cove Hotel. And again, I'm hoping they have an artist's impression of it to share. And this project will generate over 800 new jobs. So when they talk about jobs, we have already attracted investments that will create the jobs and put all Antiguans and Barbudans to work. Already, we have a shortage of construction workers, skilled construction workers, because the economy continues to expand rapidly. And I'm pretty sure that any Antiguan or Barbudan who is out of work and is desirous of working could find a job throughout the course of this year. A US $130 million luxury resort in Barbuda at the old Dulcina Hotel site. This project is being developed by a group of local and foreign investors. And I'll add here that they have already deposited the first $30 million in equity at the ECAP Bank. Additionally, there will be expansion of several hotels to include Sandals Grand. They will begin expansion of their property early in 2023. In fact, I'm told they have already started, and that they will employ an additional 300 persons. Tamarind Hill, which was substantially built under my administration, a luxury boutique resort, has completed its third phase expansion with 43 single-bedroom suites and a combination of villas, along with a new restaurant, bars, and spa. Hawksbill Hotel. The property will be fully refurbished and enhanced with added facilities to reopen on November 1st, 2023. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, these are not empty promises and, let's say, grandiloquent pledges with no evidence to prove them or contracts to implement them. These are all projects that have started or are about to be implemented based on contracts that have been executed. Now, jobs will increase, opportunities for local ownership will expand, and the economy will grow even more, putting money in the people's pockets and allowing businesses to enlarge their profitability. Now, for a few words in Barbuda, because you know, Barbuda has been the ugly duckling in the relationship between Antigua and Barbuda for decades. My administration, in fact, my colleagues and I, even prior to taking up the governance of this country, saw the potential of Barbuda would have said to the Barbudan people that Barbuda is a diamond in the rough, and that our administration, when we would have achieved the governance of the country, will help them to realize their true potential. I see the former representative here, Arthur Nibbs. And I want to thank him because, you see, he too was operating in a culture of hostility in terms of the relationship between Antigua and Barbuda. But he bought into our vision that we could transform Barbuda into a luxury island destination in the Caribbean. And whereas it was a great vision for the island, I have to tell you, I'm a little surprised that we achieved it so soon. And as I go on, even in the context of the hurricane, I have to say that we have done remarkably well as a people to transform Barbuda into a luxury island destination. You know, no one who saw Barbuda in 2017 after Hurricane Irma decimated it, with not one livable building left standing, could possibly have imagined its transformation today into a hive of viable economic activities. You remember that I was the first person to travel to Barbuda, even as hazardous high winds made air travel extremely risky, and while another hurricane was set to further batter it. But again, it speaks to my personal commitment to Barbuda and the Barbudan people. So no matter what they say about Gaston Brown, there's no other leader in the history of Antigua and Barbuda that has shown more commitment to Barbuda. I vowed then that Barbuda should never again be in a situation where a hurricane could cause so much human suffering and hardships. Barbuda, in my view, had to be transformed into a self-sufficient and vibrant community, not to be dependent on the Antiguan and Barbudan treasury. Such a beautiful island. Why should they have to depend on a treasury every week, the check every week, every month from the Antiguan treasury? And that is what the ABLP administration set out to do. Today, it is just over 5 years later. Barbuda is well on its way to become one of the premier luxury destinations in the world. Not just the Caribbean, but in the world. It already has full and sustainable employment, guaranteed by the huge financial investments that have been made. The Barbudan residents are living in new or greatly refurbished homes. New buildings have been constructed for schools and a hospital, and a modern airport is near completion. A world-class 18-hole golf course has been laid, and a major luxury resort has been built by PLH at a cost of over $2 billion US. So in a 10-year period, PLH will spend $2 billion US on Barbuda. And if we had to take Barbuda as a separate island community, I do accept it's one nation, one people, twin island state. But if you take Barbuda as an island community in the future, it will have one of the highest per capita income in the entire hemisphere and beyond. In fact, they would have moved from the lowest to the highest. That is what you call serious transformation. The internationally renowned Nabu restaurant is providing fine dining to visitors. And as I said earlier, a multi-million-dollar investment resort by Robert De Niro and James Packer will start construction in 2023. And I'll say here that they have already gotten approval of plans, and I have signaled to them that if they don't start this year, they're going to hear from me and my administration. And you know, we're dead serious. And I'm sure that this message is going to get back to my dear friend Robert De Niro. So he either perform or get out of the way. It's too beautiful a property to be left idle. And I say this without any fear of contradiction. When it comes to the advancement of this country, we will not leave any stone unturned. Now, the cargo port in Barbuda will be rebuilt starting this month in January 2023 and will be operational by June of this year. Power on the island currently is generated mostly from renewable sources, making Barbuda a green, sustainable island community. And I guarantee you that within the next 24 months, Barbuda will be powered exclusively by green energy, making it the only green energy community in the entire Caribbean. Significantly, residents of Barbuda can now purchase properties on which they live informally for a peppercorn sum of $1. In addition, each adult Barbudan can get 1 acre of land for $1. And as a result of the work that has been done by the Minister of Information, the Honorable Melford Nicholas, the Ministry of Land and Housing, the Honorable Mary Brown, and other entities within the public sector, I am pleased to confirm that the first 75 acre lots at $1 per acre is now available to Barbudans. You know, I wished when we became independent, Xavier had given each member in my family 1 acre of land each for $1. That would have accelerated my transition to a millionaire much faster, much quicker. You know, their ownership of property can be used to raise loans from financial institutions, to set up businesses, to fund educational opportunities, to provide services. And we believe too that they'll be able to provide services to the various resorts on Barbuda, and certainly their guests. Now, amongst those businesses, the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party government is promoting the establishment of farms to grow organic foods for use by the resorts and restaurants. Ultimately, there will be hundreds of pools, millions of square feet of glass to be cleaned within the PLH project alone, providing opportunities for pool management, cleaning, and management services. In fact, property management services will be plentiful on Barbuda. And when you're managing a property valued at $40 million US, evidently you can command a pay of maybe $4,000 to $5,000 US a month. So that is an area in which both Antiguans and Barbudans should be equipping themselves to seize those opportunities. The wages and salaries which will be available to Barbuda residents will permit them to purchase homes, cars, and other amenities that will considerably improve the quality of their lives. In fact, our vision is that Codrington should be utilized in the future, probably for rental purposes, when they build out their luxury properties at Louis Hill and other sites in Barbuda. So as individuals go to Barbuda to work, the Barbudans can then rent their existing properties, which are owned on a freehold basis to them, and use those properties as an investment property. So you can see precisely how we are empowering the people of Antigua and Barbuda, and Barbudans in this case. A new ABLP government will also construct a business hub on Barbuda with satellite offices to deliver the services offered by the Transport Board, medical benefits, education levy, social security, APA, and other agencies. The ABLP administration is very pleased that we have resiliently nursed Barbuda from its devastation and the dislocation of its residents to the vibrancy it now enjoys and the bright future that lies before it. In fact, it is one of the greatest examples of resilience that we have seen anywhere in the world in recent history. Under the stewardship of the ABLP government, Barbuda, which was deemed uninhabitable 5 years ago, is now repositioned as a luxury tourism destination. And again, I said to you that, such is the high quality of visionary thinking and stellar financial management that the ABLP team has given to our nation's affairs. And that is why we can stand in a forum and say that we have not only earned the trust of the people of Antigua and Barbuda, We have not only delivered for the people of Antigua and Barbuda, but we deserve to be returned to office. You know, there are a few people who said to me, in the unlikely event the people of Antigua and Barbuda were to vote against the Labour Party administration, it would have been the most wicked act to have been completed or committed against any government in the history of our country. And whereas they're not necessarily my sentiments, because I don't see it as a possibility, I can understand the concerns of those persons. Distinguished colleagues, you're aware of the tremendous, obvious, and measurable strides that our country has made in accessibility to education and healthcare services. The ABLP team is gratified that we initiated and implemented the Five Islands campus of UE, giving all our people the chance for higher education within their own shores. And by so doing, we have significantly driven down the cost of the university education, $5,000 per year, EC. We share the great pride of all the people of Antigua and Barbuda that our country has a university at last. The Antigua and Barbuda Party wants to satisfy the ambition of every family to have at least one university graduate by 2030. And therefore, it's important for those who are not qualified to seize the opportunity to become qualified, because by 2030, we expect at least one graduate per household. Antigua and Barbuda, the University of the West Indies UE campus at Five Islands, plays a dual role as a pathway for educational empowerment of individuals, as the creator of a continuous pool, and as the creator of a continuous pool of qualified human resources upon which our country's development depends. The ABLP government recently successfully negotiated a loan of $216 million from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, specifically for the expansion of the Five Islands campus. And I'll just pause here to say that next Tuesday, we will host a signing ceremony, and we'll be inviting all of you to come to that ceremony next Tuesday. I believe it will be at about 10 a.m. You know, it will be a momentous occasion that we'd like to share with all of you. Now, that money assures, that is the $216 million, the continued physical build-out and equipping of the campus, as well as its capacity to educate our people to a higher level. Additionally, to help our people to achieve the highest level of education and knowledge, the ABLP administration invested $240 million over the last 8 years in scholarship grants. $240 million. It is a program the ABLP will continue and expand in the future. Convinced that no one is ever too old to learn, and that missed opportunities can be seized anew. The ABLP. Yes. Don't worry, no kind of bug can stop us. Not even the UV bug. So, colleagues, I was speaking about the issue of seizing the opportunities, and that the ABLP government has also introduced its Second Chance program. Now, that's a very important program. It's a program that permits anyone to acquire the certification necessary to enter university and to emerge with a degree. So regarding, let me go, before I go to health, I want to go to health next, but again, I want to make the point here that you're not too old to learn, and that we have all of the institutional arrangements in place to ensure that you can matriculate to UE Five Islands. Now regarding health, the ABLP government has invested heavily and steadily in healthcare. The Celeste Bird Medical Center is fully equipped with modern technology and qualified staff. The number of beds per 1,000 of population has increased to 3, surpassing the capacity of many other developing countries worldwide. When 2 field hospitals, which are in government's possession, are added, the number of beds per thousand of population rises to 4, should there be any need. The ABLP administration also developed the Infectious Disease Center, constructed during the COVID-19 pandemic, to manage any future epidemics and pandemics. A new hospital facility was established at Nugent Avenue, and 2 new polyclinics have been built to serve immediate and expanded healthcare needs. A renal unit for kidney patients is now being constructed at the old Halverton Hospital site, and a cardiac unit will be built at the medical center to provide pacemakers, stents, and other non-invasive heart treatments, taking healthcare to the next level. And let me state here too, and you know I've always said that we should never limit our ambition. The ABLP's ambition is to pursue heart and liver transplants in the future. To increase access to kidney transplants, the ABLP government will expand the Living Donor Program and explore kidney donations from persons who consent to do so in the event of their death. These facilities are being provided at no cost to any patient. That's right, no cost to any patient. The ABLP regards healthcare as a public good and a right. That is why affordability of healthcare services is important. That is why the government provides so many healthcare services and medicines for free. Our investment in healthcare is an investment in our people.
That is true.
And as you know, this is not rhetoric. For the ABLP, our people come first. My friends, I now point out this manifesto's commitment to public servants. And I know that I'm long, but I want you to understand that this is, in essence, is a developmental plan for the people of Antigua and Barbuda. And that is why I have to spend some time to deal with some sectors and a number of issues involving our public servants and others. So I do not want to shorten this presentation, because what we're seeking here is buy-in, and the people of Antigua and Barbuda must understand that my administration has a comprehensive plan for their development. The ABLP is fully committed to increasing the wages and salaries of public servants. Our team regrets that the negotiations with the unions representing public servants were so protracted that the matter could not have been settled before the general elections on January 18th. The ABLP blames no one for delay in the negotiations. And I'd say here too that as a political party, which was born out of the oldest trade union in Antigua and Barbuda, the Antigua Trades and Labor Union, the ABLP fully understands that the unions must represent their members to the best of their ability. And we recognize, for example, that the teachers' union is agitating and making certain threats. We have no difficulties with that. And I'll give a public undertaking that our negotiators will be in touch with the negotiators of the teachers' union and the other unions, and to set a firm date this week for the recommencement of the negotiations. Nonetheless, the ABLP records in its manifesto that it is fully committed to increasing the incomes of public servants and looks forward to the successful conclusion of negotiations early in 2023, after which payments will be made immediately. Now, notwithstanding our financial difficulties, I want to remind you that we always go the extra mile to satisfy the requirements of our people. And you recognize that to date, most public servants have been paid their back pay. In December, a month in which we had a number of payment obligations, including loan payments, we had to find nearly $30 million additional dollars to make back pay payments. And we did it. Admittedly, a number of public servants have not been paid as yet, because the calculations will take a few weeks for those who are not due precisely a full salary. And we ask them to continue to hold strain and give them the assurance that they will be paid in full and as soon as possible.
Promise made, promise kept.
Again, promise made?
Promise kept.
Absolutely. Again, you can believe in the reliability of our words. And I know that you know that whenever Gaston Brown and Team Labour gives you a commitment, you know you can take it to the bank. The ABLP also wants to increase public servants' pensions. And this is not a ploy. This is not a ploy to get your vote. This is a commitment. The ABLP also registers in the manifesto that the contributions of pensioners within the public service are recognized and appreciated. These are the persons who supported the execution of government programs, projects, and policies throughout their working life. And in their years of retirement, every effort, certainly under my administration, will be made to ensure that their pensions are sufficient. Therefore, the ABLP government will increase pensions for public servants as soon as possible after the general elections, once a consensus is reached with their representatives.
Promise made, promise kept.
In this manifesto, the ABLP team thanks all public servants for their service. We are sure that everyone will agree that throughout the stresses and strains of the COVID-19 pandemic, the nation owed a special gratitude to certain types of public servants, including nurses, doctors, teachers, customs officers, immigration officers, members of the police force, soldiers, and officers of the Office of National Drug and Money Laundering Control Policy, or NDCP. These persons were required to work even during lockdowns. They were on the front line providing services and valiantly combating the coronavirus and stopping its spread. And for that, we are eternally grateful. In this connection, they were more exposed than others and face a greater risk of infection. This situation may be repeated in different circumstances and in different ways and extent in the future. And if we do face a similar crisis, these same categories of public servants will be required to assume a greater burden. Therefore, the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party proposes to reclassify these categories of public servants, not only to compensate them for the trying tasks they undertake, but also to keep their skills and knowledge available to the government and to the people of Antigua and Barbuda. Now, teachers' reclassifications have commenced, and we expect that by the second half of 2023, the ABLP government will initiate measures to reclassify the remaining categories of public servants and adjust their incomes accordingly. Retaining our trained and skilled people is integral to lifting our country to the next level of progress and prosperity. My dear countrymen and countrywomen, apart from development of our economy to the benefit of all, the ABLP team wants to build not just a society, but a just society, so that our country and all who live in it can live in freedom and happiness with their rights fully respected. In this regard, the ABLP intends to adopt legislation to increase the retirement age in both the public and private sectors to the age at which Social Security pensions are payable. Thus, the present gap between retirement and payment of Social Security payments will be closed. That is an injustice that we will resolve before the end of the first quarter of this year. We'll also develop and implement adaptive social protection strategies to respond to economic or health shocks that are externally generated or are the result of natural disasters. Continue to promote gender equity such that neither gender is left behind. My dear friends, this manifesto details the ABLP's plans for the further inclusion and promotion of women in all sectors of economic, social, and political life. And you can see already that we are including more females in our team. And I want to make a special appeal to the female of this country in particular. I know many of you have shown greater confidence in male candidates. And perhaps, in many instances, for good reasons. But certainly, where you have capable, experienced female candidates, I believe that the females of this country have an obligation to stand with them. But insofar as females are concerned and their empowerment, a few facts are worth noting. The ABLP established a sexual offenses model court. The court ensures that sexual offense cases are dealt with expeditiously, mitigating the level of trauma experienced by the victim of sexual offense. Equally, it provides the opportunity for any person or persons accused of sexual offense to prove innocence. Since most sexual offenses are directed at females, including children, the court is an additional protection for the safety of women in our society. The ABLP also established the Family Division of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. This court is designed to deal with problems arising out of family relations, including men who neglect their responsibilities to look after the children or to pay for their support. It also allows for domestic disputes to be managed in a manner beneficial to all parties involved. These two courts are change agents, giving women and children particularly greater security. But men also benefit if they are also victims of domestic violence or wrongly accused. Altogether, the structure now exists for greater protection of women and children in our society. In this regard, they are exemplary because they improve the quality of justice in our nation, another cause for pride and satisfaction. The ABLP government passed the Sexual Offences Registry Bill and encouraged a bipartisan effort to the National Assembly to do so. The registry will publicly list convicted rapists and violators of sexual offense legislation. The objective is to reduce the incidence of sexual reoffending by monitoring convicted sex offenders and by sharing information with participating jurisdictions within the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. Also, anyone can consult the register should any suspicions arise about any individual. And this is not magical. In further promotion of women's rights and family welfare, in September 2022, the ABLP government increased paid maternity leave to 14 weeks. That's right, 14 weeks. Maternity leave is essential, not only for the healthy development of our nation's infants, but also to ensure that the mother's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being is safeguarded and strengthened. Over 50% of our nation's workforce is women. The ABLP is committed to the social inclusion of our women in all aspects of our next level development as a society and a nation. And migrants, work permit fees and visas. The ABLP is pleased to see that the UPP has finally recognized the economic and social benefits of migrants to our community. In fact, insofar as nationals of the Dominican Republic and our Caribbean nationals, we see them as our brothers and sisters. Now, in the 10 years of UPP governance, UPP deported hundreds of these CARICOM nationals as well as nationals of the Dominican Republic. And that is a matter of fact. Some of those migrants, as they saw them, who were deported without a court hearing and no court order, were the mothers and fathers of Antiguan and Barbudan children. Can you imagine that they actually left a number of our young children born in Antigua and Barbuda fatherless and motherless? Do you want to see a more wicked act committed against our people? You know, at every general elections, except this one, UPP has berated migrants or immigrants, describing them in the most disparaging terms. And we know it. It's factual. We have the tapes. We have the recordings. Now all of a sudden, they appear to have experienced an epiphany. Or at least they're pretending to be converted until the elections are over. You know the typical, sheep in wolf clothing? And I just want to tell our people, especially our CARICOM nationals and certainly nationals of the Dominican Republic, to be cautious and don't be fooled. UPB not only deported immigrants, but they also never once gave them an amnesty to help them remedy the situations. They never did. And by contrast, my administration gave 3 amnesties during the last 7 years. I'll go further. There's no other administration in the history of Antigua and Barbuda that's given more amnesty than my administration. None. And we did so in recognition of our CARICOM treaty obligations. And we also extended the privilege to the Dominican Republic nationals because of our long commitment to Caribbean integration. And I'll say here that because of our commitment to Caribbean integration, Antigua and Barbuda is more representative of CARICOM than any other country in Caribbean. Now, 2 other reasons influence our decision to remove work permit fees and to accord nationals of the Dominican Republic the same visa status as CARICOM nationals. The first was recognition that immigrants have played a significant role in our development, working together with nationals of our country. The second reason is the fact that as our economy grows and expands, we will need able-bodied labor to fulfill all of our labor requirements. And let me say it here without any fear of contradiction. By the end of this year, we will have labor shortages practically in every sector. Already, we do not have enough skilled workers for construction. Already, we have a shortage of nurses. I mean, if we can't provide enough nurses from the domestic system, then clearly, we'll have to utilize some of our Caribbean brothers and sisters to fill the gap. So there are certain labor gaps that will have to be filled by these individuals. They're already living here. They're already integrated in our society. And perhaps in some instances, a little training, they can make a contribution in certain sectors where we have these employment gaps. Now, the UPB may have had other reasons for their conversion, but whatever it is, our Caribbean brothers and sisters and Dominicanos will not be fooled by the attempted deceptions. You know, they're the absolute best when it comes to deception, and they do so shamelessly. In fact, I think they're literally insulting the intelligence of the Antiguan and Barbudan people. My dear countrymen and countrywomen, I now come to the youth of our nation. Youth are the primary focus of the large sums of money that the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party administration has invested in education, including the 5 Islands campus of the University of the West Indies, the construction of the Sir Novel Richards Academy, and the expansion and renovation of schools in both Antigua and Barbuda. Youth are also the beneficiaries, as I said before, of the $240 million that the ABLP government has spent over the last 8 years, providing scholarships for higher education, both at 5 Islands and overseas. Special effort has also been made to ensure that young people are the beneficiaries of the Entrepreneurial Development Fund and the Venture Capital Fund that assists young people to start up businesses or expand existing ones. Qualifying young people have received residential land at $4 per square foot, amortized over 10 years at an interest rate of 3%, terms that are available nowhere else in the world. That is how generous my administration is to the youth of this country. Young people have also been given the opportunity to own their own homes at the several housing estates throughout the country that the ABLP government and its agencies have constructed. Many of them have taken advantage of this opportunity to own their first home. The many facilities for sports activities across the country have also been built for the benefit of young people, not only for their recreational activities, but also to help prepare those who are interested in participating in regional and international games. The sports section of the Manifesto shows that the ABLP government has already broken ground for the construction of a new aquatic center with an appropriate size international swimming pool. We also intend to construct a multi-purpose, well-equipped indoor sports center that will prepare our young people for competition in regional and international games. All this underscores the commitment of the ABLP government to provide opportunities for the growth, development, and empowerment of our youth. Adding to this, the ABLP will invest in facilities to give our youth a chance to develop their musical talent and to export their music around the world. In the past, we have had musicians who have made regional and international names. Among them are Sir Maclean Emmanuel, King Short Shirt, Sir Paul King Obstinate Richards, certainly Burning Flames, and as far back as the 1940s, the Brute Force Steel Band. The facilities today, via modern technology, including artificial intelligence and the internet, are multiplied significantly. To contribute further, the ABLP proposes to equip secondary schools with music laboratories to promote and hone musical growth, development, and expression. And these facilities will also utilize artificial intelligence. My friends, in 2014 and again in 2018, the ABLP government placed young women in their 20s into the Senate, the National Assembly, and the Cabinet. Again, in the January 2023 general elections, women in their 30s, and I emphasize early 30s, among the ABLP candidates. I have also indicated that a re-elected ABLP government will include 22-year-old Caleb Gardner in the Senate. So his recent appointment was not a form of tokenism to the youth, but a commitment to youth empowerment, and he will be among the first senator to be appointed or reappointed when we resume the governance of this country. And he's a product of UE5 Islands. He's a graduate of UE5 Islands and was a member of the National Youth Parliament. He has the capacity and knowledge to ensure that the views of young people are heard in the highest decision-making body in the land. So we selected him based on his competence, based on his achievements. Further, young persons will also be appointed to boards and statutory corporations. Our formula continues to be a mixture of youth and experience at all levels of governance. And we will make sure that this kind of next level commitment continues, and will continue to make the youth of our country be part of the present governance framework and to ensure that they play an integral role in future governance. Building a beautiful environment is integral to building a beautiful society. And I want to spend a little time on this issue because we have to do something about the environment. We are the environment, and the environment is us. So the beautification of Antigua's interior, its capital, city, and towns, has been somewhat hindered by perennial drought conditions. But I don't know that we can continue to use that excuse, especially considering that we continue to build out the water infrastructure. For decades, there, and I agree, has not been enough non-potable water to nurse trees and plants to full growth, contributing to making our streets and highways appear unkempt and certainly untidy. The numerous persons who would litter by dropping their leftover bottles, their paper utensils, and other material on the roadway in violation of little laws and guidelines for disposing of rubbish. And I want to say here that we'd rather a form of self-regulation, so we do not have to invoke the provisions of the law. However, next level development requires the beautification of Antigua and Barbuda for the enjoyment of its people, the enhancement of tourism, and the general appearance of the island. We must improve the aesthetics of our country. In this regard, the ABLP government will implement the following measures. And again, these are not hostile policies. These are policies to ensure compliance. And we recognize that where there's no fine, where there's no, let's say, fine to ensure compliance, then obviously people continue to violate. Now, along the measures include 1 million trees and flowering plants will be made available annually for planting. We'll use the various government agencies to propagate those plants. Highways will be identified for tree and flowering plants and returned for advertising and name association. Private sector companies will be invited to pay for their own contracted teams to maintain the stretches of highways and roundabouts that they choose. Additionally, government agencies will maintain groups of persons to maintain and nurture plants and trees and roads and highways, which they will be assigned to keep clean and attractive. Further, an inter-island school competition at separate primary and secondary schools will be initiated, on which schools will vie for the best Prime Minister's Inter-School Trophy for their contribution to growing plants and flowers and nurturing them within a 1-mile radius of their school location.
Nice.
Prisoners, they too must contribute. So prisoners who are confined for non-grievous crimes and others who are facing alternate sentencing will also be required to give supervised community service by contributing to the island beautification process. And let me speak about the existing laws. The existing laws requiring unused land to be kept free of bush, weeds, and other growth will be strengthened and implemented. And we all know that that's a problem practically in all of our communities. You know, these unkempt properties, overgrown shrubs, creating insecurity as well as a health problem. The village competition will also be revitalized and re-energized to restore the pride that villagers had in their communities and their keenness to profile the attractiveness of their surroundings. Service organizations such as Lions, Rotary will be invited to partner with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Department or Development Control Authority as well as the environmental authorities to recommend and organize ways in which the beautification of Antigua and Barbuda can be made continuous and sustainable. Beautification of Antigua and Barbuda is essential to our sense of pride and dignity as a people. Previous generations worked hard to maintain the attractiveness of our homeland and to make it stand out in the Caribbean. It is that burning sense of pride and dignity that next level development seeks to reignite and to keep alive. And we ask for your cooperation and full participation. My dear friends, as I wind down this presentation, I now turn to cultural activity. Cultural activity is also essential to building a beautiful society. In this manifesto, we lay out plans for encouraging the performing arts by providing facilities in schools at the national level. Central to this is the construction of a performing arts center with a concert hall at the site which used to be occupied by the Deluxe Cinema in St. John's. That's right. We bought that building for a particular purpose, and it will be renovated and repurposed into a performing arts center. And we bought it at an undervalue. So the people of Antigua and Barbuda lost nothing. They gained millions in value. The facility will also be used to build a national orchestra and to facilitate the development of professional musicians, actors, producers, directors, and designers of costumes and stage sets. The Performing Arts Center will become the forum of artistic development and expression and entertainment in the next level development of music and drama productions. My dear friends, recognizing that climate change and its impacts are real, and that small island states must do their utmost to mitigate the harmful effects, the ABLP government will do the following. We will reduce our country's carbon footprint by 50% by 2030 and will become carbon neutral by 2040. We'll update the building code and enact measures that promote the adoption of renewable energy and backup storage systems for new homes. We'll also expand financial incentives to promote the adoption of renewable energy and energy-efficient practices and technologies across leading sectors. We'll promote climate performance in Antigua and Barbuda to withstand Category 5 hurricanes. Invest in climate-proofing other critical infrastructures such as clinics, hospitals, and schools so that they can continue to operate fully during and after a hurricane, several rainfall events, and during severe drought and excessive heat conditions. At the same time, the Antigua and Barbuda Party will continue its leadership role in advocating for climate justice, including compensation for loss and damage, as well as for limitations in the greenhouse gas emissions of major polluting countries that cause climate change. The impact of climate change needs to be mitigated at home and certainly resisted abroad. And Antigua and Barbuda continues to be at the forefront of that fight. In making Antigua and Barbuda resilient, opportunities exist for private companies and individuals to build sustainable and profitable businesses and to create new jobs. Distinguished friends, the upgrade of the nation's information communication technology systems, ICTs, must match the same level of effectiveness and innovativeness as in the developed world. Competition is global. Therefore, the Antigua and Barbuda standard must also be global. We have already initiated the process by which APUA is laying its own on-the-sea fiber optic cable at a cost of about $50 million. The Labour Party administration intends to take INET to the next level of high quality and affordability, bringing down its prices and forcing competitors to drop their prices as well. These developments are already next level upward movements on the pathway to greater progress and prosperity for all. They include e-government operations, business operations, long distance and remote learning for people resident in Antigua and Barbuda, digital nomads, and others providing IT services remotely, telemedicine in hospitals, clinics, and doctors' offices, and for home entertainment. Therefore, the ABLP government spent $45 million ensuring that fiber optic cable reaches every community. Next level digitalization and digitization depend on rapid broadband services as offered in the most developed countries in the world. The ABLP is determined to provide that instant connecting bridge to the world. Further, an extremely important factor in the digitization of government records and activities is to give every person in Antigua and Barbuda access to all government revenues and expenditure, including procurement and the award of contracts. The objective of next level digitization is for any person to access government transactions with good governance and accountability. Every person must have access to transactions that give detail of every line item of income and every line item of government expenditure. We know that this process works because we have accomplished it with the revenues and expenditure for the Citizen by Investment Unit, which is fully accessible online. We recognize that it will take time to construct the digital platforms for full accountability of all government offices, but each phase will provide more information until the platform for accessibility is fully built out. The ABLP government is resolved to be accountable to the people and to provide them the information to monitor performance. This is next level governance.
Real talk.
My dear friends, a housing revolution is taking place in Antigua and Barbuda, and you can see it right before your eyes. There is no community in which construction activity is not taking place. Thousands of houses have been constructed on both islands over the last 8 years. Construction and development have been done by government, private sector companies, and private individuals. With respect to public sector contribution to the housing boom, the following has occurred. National Housing and Chapel have delivered over 1,000 homes and currently have 125 more homes under construction. They will scale up the provision of new homes to satisfy the national demand for homes. To this end, they will invest in a structural integrated panel system, SIPS, at SIPS homes to speed up the construction and delivery of homes, and will increase the construction of 2-bedroom starter homes for $125,000. A grant of $90 million from the People's Republic of China, which we're extremely grateful, will be utilized to construct low-income climate-resilient homes in Point, Jennings, and Barbuda. These homes will have a rent-to-own option. The ABLP administration will enhance its urban renewal program to include improving the aesthetics of the central business district and improve the housing stock in neighboring communities, including Point, Villa, Grace Farm, Green Bay, Otters, Old City, and Perry Bay, by operationalizing the Home Improvement Loan Program in early 2023. It is important, my dear countrymen and countrywomen, to note that more nationals of Antigua and Barbuda own their homes than at any other time in our nation's history. Such is the level of betterment that the ABLP is determined to bring to Antiguans and Barbudans. Providing homes to people is a labor of love to which the ABLP is committed and which is determined to implement. Distinguished friends, one of the priorities identified in this manifesto is food security through the development of agriculture. And even though speech is long, if I did not mention anything about agriculture, I would get in trouble with the distinguished Minister, Robert Samantha Marshall. We know that our customary drought conditions are a challenge, but we are resolved that our country should achieve as high a level of food security as possible. And COVID would have taught us that. During COVID, when little could be imported, many people turned to farming their backyards and unused lands with great results. This is a development that we intend to encourage and incentivize. The ABLP government has already incentivized farmers by subsidizing water costs by 25%. To ensure some degree of food security, the ABLP administration will increase the subsidy this year, while feasibility studies are conducted on sustainable and affordable means of water supply. So as soon as we put in the next plan that will provide 3 million gallons of water per day, sometime, I would say no later than the second quarter of this year, we'll be further reducing the price of water to farmers because we're very serious about food security. The ABLP government is also examining ways of increasing the export of fish, which also contributes 50% of agricultural output. We are committed to continue working with the farming and fishing communities to utilize modern technology to maximize production and earnings with links to hotels, restaurants, and supermarkets. And again, too, in terms of entrepreneurship, if individuals want to buy large ships that they can do commercial fishing, serious commercial fishing, we will partner with our fishermen. We have the equity fund in place already. My dear friends, the ABLP understand that sometimes bright ideas do not reach fruition because persons lack the capital to invest. Sometimes even established business persons have bright ideas, but are averse to risk. To overcome these difficulties, the ABLP government created the Entrepreneurial Development Fund, EDF, and the Venture Capital Fund, the VPF. These mechanisms provide financial support to local persons to launch small and medium-sized businesses into profit-making enterprises. The EDF gives loans repayable over 10 years at an interest rate or at interest rates between 1% and 3%, depending on the type of business. It's the cheapest money in the market. Successful applicants would also benefit from developmental land at $3 a square foot, as well as tax-free and duty-free concessions. So we have the whole gamut of business infrastructure in place in order to facilitate the establishment and expansion of business. So far, activity in 5 key sectors have benefited: tourism, fishing, agriculture, construction, and retail services. EDF aims to create an entrepreneurial class among those persons who have creative ideas and good business plans, but have been unable to raise financial support they need. The ABLP government's resolve is to help local people command a significant place in the nation's economy. The commanding heights of this country's economy must be controlled by the citizens and residents of this country. We have made that commitment in this manifesto, and we resolve to honor it as we have been doing. My friends, I could not cover everything in this manifesto in such a short time. There are other matters in it that you can read at your convenience, at your leisure. But since this manifesto is a compact between the ABLP and the people of Antigua and Barbuda, I wanted to highlight some of the key pledges that we have made. And this is the final area that I will tackle. There will continue to be no personal income tax. And you know our word is our law. And whereas others will tell you that there will be no personal income tax, I'm sure that you would not have the confidence to believe it. I said to you also, as part of our pledge, that there be no increase in the ABST, that No ABST on essential foods and no ABST on items of hygiene products. There will be no increases on those, and that where practicable, we will reduce ABST on those items. We will remove duty on security systems and alternative green energy products for homes and businesses. And as I said before, where possible, we'll reduce ABST on more products. And in any event, we'll continue programs to reduce or remove ABST on goods at seasonal times. We'll bring down the cost of electricity and water by the use of renewable and green sources of energy, such as solar energy. We'll further incentivize the agriculture and fisheries sectors to provide locally grown and more affordable foods. We'll adopt legislation that will match the retirement age for all workers in the public and private sectors with the age at which Social Security pensions are payable. In this way, there will be no gap in the period between retirement and receipt of Social Security pensions. We'll increase the income and pensions of public servants immediately after the current negotiations are completed. With regard to water and electricity and roads, these are our pledges. We'll continue and accelerate the program of expanding and improving water supply by installing more reverse osmosis RO plants and literally replacing the existing delivery system with pipes made of larger and more durable material. The ABLP is determined that the water difficulties which have plagued our drought-prone country for decades will not continue. We will expand the plants for delivering electricity so as to surpass demand in order to have spare capacity to cater for breakdowns, maintenance, and repairs. Particularly, the ABLP will encourage private sector investment, including home and business owners, in renewable energy or renewable energy sources, such as solar power. Agreements will be pursued with private sector partners and home and business owners to produce and sell excess power generation to the national grid. Incentives will also be provided to homes and businesses that install solar power and green alternative energy systems. We will provide incentives to hotels, resorts, and other large users of water and electricity to build and install their own RO water plants and solar power plants to reduce the demand on the Antigua and Barbuda Public Utilities Authority, APUA, and to contribute to a greater and uninterrupted supply of water and electricity to homes and small and medium-sized businesses. We'll pay careful attention to maintaining the main arterial roads and highways that connect the country. Antigua will be zoned for priority work on community roads, which will be conducted by first repairing or rebuilding those in the worst condition and continuing on an equitable basis across the island until all are addressed. Distinguished friends, Antigua and Barbuda is not just better than, or Antigua and Barbuda is not just better than it was 8 years ago. It has proven to be among the most durable and resilient in the world. That is how we had more economic growth than any country in the Caribbean, other than Guyana, with its new wealth in oil and gas. We can make our country even stronger than it is now, and we can grow our economy even faster and greater than we already have. But to do that, we have to be honest about what the real challenges are that now confront us in a volatile world, and who would be better to manage our affairs successfully. I ask you that you remember the 10-year period of hardships and retrogression from 2004, where I was add here under the mismanagement of the United Progressive Party. And the reason why I've asked you to reflect on those years is because, as they say, past performance is obviously the best example of future performance. Recall also that the ABLP recovered our nation from the precipice of disaster to which it would be pushed in. The economy was rebuilt, jobs were restored, public safety was secured, private sector confidence in the country soared, investment increased, more employment was created, opportunities were open to all, and the economy flourished. In a few days, my dear countrymen and countrymen, we will have a choice to make. And I would say here that it is perhaps the most significant choice that this country would have faced since independence, to determine whether or not we continue to progress or if we retrogress. We must make sure that we make the right choice as a nation, so that we can move forward and upward as one united people, determined together to support each other in our collective effort to build a bountiful, beautiful, and beneficial nation. The plentiful country we all want will not come if we wait for someone else to hand it to us, or if we wait for some other time to achieve it. Now is the time. We are the ones in whose hands our nation's destiny now lies. We are the ones whose actions will decide our future. We are the ones that can make the difference. Let us therefore join together to make that positive difference now. Let us make the right choice by opting for the next higher level of progress and prosperity that is set out in the ABLP 2023 Manifesto that we launched today. I thank you, my distinguished countrymen.
Thank you very much. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. You've had an extensive overview of the 2023 Manifesto for election 2023. We still encourage you to read the document. You will see on some of the banners, if you have your smartphones, you can scan the barcode and have the document on your phone. It will also be circulated in PDF form via social media, WhatsApp, etc. And those of you who already have a single copy, kindly take one. And the Prime Minister will be available to sign those copies for some of you here this afternoon. We have prepared lunch for you, and we thank you most kindly for being here with us. And I will close this afternoon's session with words from the manifesto by the Honorable Prime Minister and leader of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, found on page 6. It says, "My personal vision for our nation is that it should be an economic powerhouse which drives robust growth and sustainable development to achieve developed country living standards. This is why steering our affairs to the next level of progress and prosperity is my driving ambition. Every Antiguan and Barbudan has a right to be a better, more productive, healthy, and happy life." Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and we look forward to each and every Antiguan and Barbudan doing the right thing on January 18th. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And just as we entered, we will exit with our members from the platform, beginning with Sir Robin Yearwood. Sedwoy Benjamin. Sir Marlin Joseph. Mr. E.P. Chet Green. Melford Nicholas, Dean Jonas, Maria Brown, Darrell Matthew, Michael Brown, Dr. Michael Brown, Gail Christian, Rawdon Turner, Colin James, Samantha Marshall, Lennox Weston, Max Fernandez, Prime Minister and Leader, the Honorable Gaston Brown.